drones aren't just toys. These are professional instruments that when used appropriately, you can get some real good solid data.
Hello and welcome to part one of our two-part season finale of the Unmanned Podcast powered by USI. Today we're going to sit down with Adrian O'Dell, the owner-operator of ARO Aerial, an Ohio drone company that brings a new perspective on projects through high-resolution drone imaging and precision aerial visuals. If you're a real estate developer or a construction manager needing site insights, I'm certain they can help you out. In this episode, we're going to learn about how ARO Aerial uses drones for precision surveying and mapping within the construction industry. And we get to hear about that from a USI graduate and a certified USI instructor. We are very proud of Adrian and we can't wait for you to hear from him. Let's go. Hey Adrian, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. How are you, Matt?
I'm awesome. It's great to see you. It's awesome to see some of those drone technologies behind you. We're going to talk about those a little later. Hopefully I see something over your left shoulder that's intriguing to me and I'm sure my audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we jump into that, I'm super excited about talking to you today as a former or actually somebody who's currently taking some classes at USI. You're our very first alum to be on the show, and we're excited to talk to you about USI and what it's done for you and how you've applied some of the learnings that you've had in our courses to your current work place and what you're doing today. And I'm sure everyone's going to be excited to hear about that. But before we get there, let's learn a little bit about Adrian and who you are, where you're from. Give us a bit about your background and how'd you get into drones?
All right. Sounds good. So I'm currently in Columbus, Ohio. That's where we're based out of. I run my business out of here. I started off back in early 2016 in the country of San Pedro, Belize. So I was actually working with one of the land developers over there, and they brought in an airline pilot to get footage of some of the development properties that were taking place over there. And I was like, why do you need an airline pilot? But that's when I learned about the 107 and actually needing to be properly licensed, certified, et cetera, to be able to comply with FAA regulations. So I was like, oh, it's actually quite serious. So they brought in the pilot to get that particular scope for them. I kind of watched what he was doing. They let me fly a little bit over there. And so I was like, all right, I kind of like this. But fast forwarding that a little bit, or really looking to where these things got started, I grew up next to Mansfield Lime Airport. So we were used to going down there to the air shows. My dad was in the Air Force. I myself was born on the Air Force base.
That's
so
awesome.
All things flying were attractive. Yeah. So that's kind of how that interest got me started on flying drones. And, started with one. Now I have 12 and here we are.
Yeah, you and me both, and I've always been, engaged with aviation. I mean, since I can remember, to this day, I drag family members to the same air museum I've been to like 10 times, 20 times. Not much has changed, but I still go to it because it's exciting and just neat to see the aircraft up close. And of course, drone technology is radically transforming aviation and what we're doing in the national airspace. So I'm super excited to hear about folks like you who are taking that professional approach to drone technology and raising that bar, raising that standard, and understanding that there's some seriousness to using these tools in the national airspace. So before we jump to that, though, tell me a little bit about how you got involved with USI. How did you hear about the academic training programs and what attracted you to those programs?
For me, education has been a big part of what the industry is all about, both from the standpoint of educating businesses in the community about, drones aren't just toys. These are professional instruments that when used appropriately, you can get some real good solid data. And so much development has been taking place over the last few years that the education space has just been a must. So I started working with the PASS Foundation here in Columbus and been teaching their drone cohort, which is students come in and they get to choose which course or curriculum they want to go in. So I've been fortunate enough over the last 5 years to have students each year that want to participate in drone education. So I got introduced to the education portion of those things through them, but also working very closely with similar education programs for younger audiences through ODOT. So education is something that's always been near and dear to me, because if we don't inspire the next generation, who will? So might as well be part of what, drives that. So the PATH Foundation, drone cohort, and then they're the ones that introduced me to actually getting the teacher's curriculum through USI. So as a pilot who is instructing their students, they wanted to add to my professional development by exposing me to the USI curriculum. So that's where I started taking the coursework through them. And I'm really thankful to them that I had that opportunity. I'm really glad that I did, because it's helping me be not just a pilot, but a professional in the industry.
We talked to the past foundation directors a few episodes ago, and what a great program that is, really engaging those underrepresented kids on not just like drone education, but business. And I mean, you name it, they have it all in that learning environment. I was super impressed, and we look forward to visiting them on their campus, as in an upcoming episode, hopefully. So that's interesting that you're a part of them. We love that program. It's really cool. Can you talk us through, or just briefly describe your experience with the training paths, and from onboarding, and kind of what your thoughts are with the curriculum, and how you're taking that and applying that to your business?
What's interesting for me is, I think I had maybe a bias, and I was like, man, I've been flying for years. What am I going to learn from this class? But it was like, no, I was actually blown away by the degree of professionalism that is brought to the curriculum. It's really about operating safely, operating efficiently, learning how to have appropriate communications with, the RPIC, remote pilot and command, the visual observer, the need to have both. That's one of the things in the industry is like, it's kind of lean and mean. I've been on many sites where it's just me on site, kind of taking care of everything. And thankfully, I haven't had any issues with that. But really, I think about it this way. When I get on an airplane, like a commercial airliner, there's two pilots. There's two people there in case something goes wrong. So it really drove home to me the need to take things a step further, to really give true consideration to safety first, and the professionalism, being able to communicate, read the air maps appropriately, but able to communicate. Not that I'm calling ATC, but to be able to let people know in advance what our operations are, so that the airways can continue to be a safe space. When privacy is a concern and safety is a concern, we need to do our part, to aid to safer airways. So that's one of the things that I really appreciate going through the curriculum. It's extra layers of things, and understanding the different roles of responsibility, who does what, why there's the need for those pieces of responsibility. And that's one of the things that I think was the big eye opener to me, is, for lack of a better term, I felt as if I wasn't operating as safely as I could have, given the level of education I now have.
Yeah, there's two unique things that I took away from that. And the first was the last thing you said, as safely. Doesn't mean you're operating unsafe. It just meant it just means you recognized, hey, I could be doing this better. And I think that's a unique perspective. And then the second thing I took away was, it's almost tied to that, and that's like, we don't know everything. I've been in the drone industry 10 years and in aviation for 30. You said you started in 2016, so 10 years yourself. And we can still learn. We can still learn a technique, a lessons learned, a best practice. I mean, there's tons of things that we can still learn from each other and implement in our activities and in the way we operate in our daily lives. And I think that's an important attitude to have, because if you start to think there's nothing you can learn, then you're unteachable. And that's where we start to become a safety hazard, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So that's interesting. What about some challenges that you may have had? I mean, let's be honest. You and I both got a little gray in our scruffs here. I mean, so we might have some other obligations, and it's difficult to go to additional schooling, and we recognize that at USI. And we're actually talking about thinking about different ways that we can address those folks that work full time, and how do we still, find ways for them to attend school. What were some challenges that you might have dealt with while you were doing that?
It was, separating the time to come over and do it, but then understanding the value that it brought. Um, that's what I had to think about, is why should I do something like this? Not what does it cost, what is the time, but what do I hope to gain in so doing? And I thought about, from that standpoint, well, it's only 3 days. Let's do it. Let's, at least the in-person portion that I did. So it just became a commitment to self, a commitment to the business to operate the way that I needed to in order to be successful out there. So overcoming that barrier, a little bit more flexibility in my own schedule with running my own business. So I just had to separate that time and say that this is important and do it. So maybe not as big as maybe a person who's working full time at the time. I've done that before. And that's one of the things that delayed me in doing something like this, is when I was working full time and trying to run the business at the same time. That was it. When am I going to find the time to actually do it? But when you get into the self-paced nature of the curriculum, it's easier to just kind of, in your early mornings or later in the evenings or outside of normal business hours, be able to commit yourself to that curriculum. So I think the flexibility and the freedom of the way the course is set up makes it a lot easier for us. It isn't always a regimented 8 to 5 piece. We can do it self-paced. So as long as you're disciplined and you can follow that on schedule, that has helped me to be able to stay on track with the coursework.
Yeah, that is a bit of a hard thing. I mean, there's so many distractions today, to be honest. I mean, you're connected 24 hours a day, and anytime you can, you're supposed to be here studying, but anything that pings you or alerts you, or any, you start to stray away on your concentration. It's difficult. It is difficult, I think, in today's world. But if you can have what like you said, that discipline to block an hour, block a couple hours, you're making yourself better, you're growing, you're learning, and hopefully that investment returns, in the pocketbook or in the success of the company, whatever that may be. So what about a specific project, class, or flight mission that you did while you were doing the course? Is there anything that stands out particularly as something that was exciting and maybe our viewers would love to hear about?
What I really appreciated having the opportunity to do was, when you get a 107, it's like, basically it's your minimum requirement to operate in this space. So when someone gets their part 107, you really don't have any experience whatsoever. You have some book skills. So what I appreciated was the hands-on aspect of even doing the maneuverability test. So we went through, there's the NIST certification that you go through to get the maneuverability skills that are necessary to operate the drone properly. And I've never gone through that, but I just learned things while I go. It was so nice to me to be able to be there for actual training, actual skill set. I learned some things in it. I got through the course relatively quickly as far as the maneuverability, because I've flown before. But then even in the standpoint from being able to oversee some of the other teachers that were learning and giving them the instructions. So do I know something well enough to teach it? That really stuck out to me, because that's the thing is, if I can do, but I needed to be able to express the terminology, yaw, roll, pitch, doing all those things and communicating, and then for them to understand the direction that I was giving. So I think it helped me to be a better operator, but a much better instructor, by having a nice shell to work within, good training from that standpoint, so that the next cohort and the cohorts to follow, I believe I have more to offer to the education system with these kids, and really anybody who wants to learn in this industry. So that's one of the things I really think was solid about the program, was their hands-on. Like, we got outside and we went through it. We went through it several times and made sure that we knew how to do it. So,
and this is the challenge, I think, because 107, if you go to the 107 course, pick the course out there. It doesn't matter. It's a lot of rote memorization. You're trying your best. If you've never been exposed to VFR sectionals, you're trying your best to memorize the shapes and symbols and all this, and you're not really applying it. You're just kind of memorizing what these things mean and then getting your 107. So I think, and I want you to speak on this, I think getting that next phase of learning makes you a better aviator, and makes you. So I guess the question is, has this given you better air sense, and
Yes.
where does that apply? Is that important?
I think that was another unique thing about the location. So we operated off the OSU campus, which has its own flight restrictions and permissions that you need to get. So we were trained and shown how to go to the appropriate, because part of it is, just because you can fly your drone somewhere doesn't mean you should, or that you're even allowed. So those are things to check in advance. So when we go and we check, hey, where am I at? Where am I going to be operating at? What altitude am I going to be operating at? What's the nearest airport? Then taking the steps to write all that information down and actually communicating with air traffic control about the operations in the area. And we had several times throughout our class where we had either med flights or police helicopters or other things entering or exiting the airspace that we had to be aware of. So for me, it was excellent because we had other people. So whereas me as a single operator, I may not have been paying as much attention. And that's what drove home the point to me, to have a visual observer or in a safety person. So we operated in teams of 3. Every flight operation we did, we had teams of 3. And I saw the value of that, because you have one person who's specifically watching the air. Because if I'm operating and I'm trying to get something done, I need to be watching the drone and making sure. So we had other people to help. That's the beauty or the value of having a team. And so that's something that the course is very, very specific about, is the need for the additional individuals. And that helped me hone in on my craft, but also respect and appreciate the need for advanced coordination between the team.
It's important to be a professional aviator, and you can't get that just from your 107 lessons. You need something to bolster that and something to add on and layer on to that. And so it's interesting, I think, that you're kind of touching on those points from the perspective of a flyer, a business owner who's trying to give the best product back to your customers. Speaking of that, tell our audience, what is ARO Aerial doing right now for our folks watching and listening? ARO Aerial is Adrian's company, and they're doing a ton of things. So talk to us a little bit about what your business is up to.
We've been really focused on the construction space, solar installations and whatnot. So we're actually starting a new project this Friday in Defiance, Ohio. It's we're going to be in them for the full engagement from start to finish at the construction site, the installation of the solar panels there. So we have a safety orientation on Friday, which is one of the big things. I've got 4 or 5 different general contractors and the owners of the company that are all coming to be part of the safety orientation, because that's the thing, is who's operating a drone on our site. So that's it. Setting up ground control points and getting survey grade data put together as well. All these things require coordination. So that's one of the things that I think the course helped prepare for as well, is being able to actually have conversations with them and know what you're talking about. Outside of have drone, we'll fly for money. It's no, I know what I'm doing. I can operate safely on the site. I can follow those, and they're making sure that we have all of our PPE and things together. But in the same standpoint, it's coordinating those different things with the different individuals. The survey team is going to be on board so that I can tie in with their ground control points, and the data that I'm collecting on the drone can be tied back there. So it's the data side of it. It's so much more than just flying the drone and collecting the data, but it's, what does that data mean? What does the survey team need? What do the engineers need? What do the general contractors need? These are, different audiences on the same site, but I've got to have an understanding of what each of their needs are and meet those needs. So those are the things. So we've got a couple of those sites. I've got 3 solar sites that I'm working on right now that are full construction site progress pieces. So 16-month engagement, 12-month engagement, and a 9-month engagement that I have left. And it's start to finish, from when they're, moving earth to when they're saying sign off on, the panels are now installed and we're doing a thermal inspection of all the panels on the site. So the full thing.
There's a lot of detail that needs to be addressed when you're doing something like surveying a construction site. It's not just photos. And some people, to include myself, thought, oh, that's just taking video and they can review periodically. But it's measurements, it's details, it's you have to get almost from a specific angle and distance the same time every time. And so talk to me about how you deal with that. How do you approach those challenges, and what do you do when you're doing a surveying mission?
I plan a lot. So I do a lot right here on the computer to make sure that I get things set up before I even show up on site. So in all I'll be doing when I get there for the survey aspect of it, I'm basically stating, here's the rough locations that I want to put ground control points for accuracy. Here is the coordinate system that we're going to be working with, making sure that we're both on the same plane, literally, as to make sure that those coordinates and the communication are accurate enough. And then they're looking for a certain level of ground sampling distance or accuracy at the ground. So I have to coordinate what is the appropriate height to fly to be able to get the level of quality that they need at the ground. Um, so all those things get talked about ahead of time, whether that's an RGB capture or a LiDAR capture. In this case, it's going to be a combination of the two. So it's getting that set up. There's, the aspect, some of the contractors, they want to know if it's pretty. So I set up waypoint missions. Yeah, it's really that. Is it pretty? I'm like, yeah, but anyway.
Yeah.
But that's setting up, I plan to get certain shots at the same place every single time on the site so that each time I go out there, they can see I took this photo from the west quadrant looking down here at a 30-degree angle. Like all of that is planned out meticulously so that those individuals that are looking for the pretty aspect and the progress, they got consistency throughout the 16-month life cycle of the project. Same thing. They have a video which tracks telemetry. I can show them exactly where the drone is, when it took the picture, record it. So all of those things matter to those stakeholders. So that's where I spend a lot of time planning before I even get on the site. That's also where it costs a little bit more. But when quality matters, you got to take the time
That's right.
to pull that together.
And again, I'm not beating up our 107 folks, but you don't learn those things, those techniques, those detail in just getting your 107. You got to cut your teeth. You got to learn. You got to have more education, or work under a mentor or something like that in order to get those skill sets refined to give that high quality data to those customers. So we talked about serving and your projects, but I see a bunch of tools behind you. Are those some of the systems that are you using currently for surveying?
Well, we've got, let's go this way. Let's get Big Bertha out.
Yeah, there we go. It's the coolest looking one. That's the one that's taken up the most the most attention.
So this is the Matrice 350. And it's got my LiDAR payload on it. So when I'm doing my survey work, this is what I take out into the field. So it's got a 2-battery operating system on it. That's and awesome. Then a $15,000 camera on it.
How much is the system as well?
So the drone itself is like 16.8.
Okay.
At least when I got it. The camera, that one's like, at least when I got it, was like 15.5. And then I have a Precision P1 camera, which is also designed for photogrammetry, which is a $9,000 camera. So like all in for a single system. Toys. Yeah. These are things you play. I mean, I have the toys and some of the smaller ones. Like they have the Matrice 4, which also has your survey RTK system that's onto it, laser rangefinder for measurements. And then when you really want to play, I haven't even opened her up yet, but
there we go. Look at that one. That's the new baby.
Yeah, the creator combo for the for video work that we do. So when I'm trying to create something more cinematic, just use some premium glass that's on there, either that or the Inspire system, which is pretty solid. And unboxed over there. Go ahead.
Why do you use the larger unit compared to the other one that you said both can kind of do a surveying?
Camera quality.
So it depends on what the customer needs, or you kind of make that decision?
Yeah, so if you just need a basic RGB or regular visual light capture, I'll use that. It's an excellent mapping drone, the Matrice 4 Enterprise. That's what it's designed for. I have the the Mavic 3, the predecessor to it. I have those. Both of them do relatively the same. The Matrice 4 is a little bit better at 3D recreation. So some of the engineers and architects that I work with, when they want 3D recreation, it has a faster shutter speed. So it's able to give me a better overlap to be able to stitch together those 3D models more consistently. When I need topo data or precision data, it's the larger airframe because it's the only ones that can carry those cameras. The cameras cost more than the other systems do, but they're also able to collect a better amount of data. So the LiDAR, it's the only option for me to utilize LiDAR is either on the M350 or the new one that I got coming in, the M400. carries the new L3 payload on there. So again, depending on the data that's needed for each individual, determines what I fly.
It's kind of like an airliner. You're not going to fly 747 from Sandusky to New York. God, use the right tool. But so do you bring all of them kind of when you're going on site because you want to be prepared? You have, one or two or three that go with you and then you kind of select it, or do you do that pre-planning and just bring one system?
When I'm on sites, I'm usually it's staggered pieces. I have multiple things that I'll do. So I have the mapping aspect or the surveying aspect of it that gets underway. I'll move on if I need like the visual or the pretty aspect of it, then there's a layer for that. So it depends. So I keep all of those with me, at least 3 drones with me at all times, sometimes 4. Ground camera, ground LiDAR system. So I have a lot of gear that I bring with me because on the construction sites that I'm on a lot, there's more requirements. So I never want to be on a site and not have what I need to do the job.
No, that makes sense. It's nothing worse than getting out there and going, oh my goodness, I forgot a battery or a camera.
The worst thing is a memory card. The memory card is like the worst thing in the whole wide world. The smallest piece is what you forget. And you're like, I can't record a thing. But then I just try to keep backups in the car. So
yeah, no, that's great. So so you got all these tools behind you. You're talking about cameras and LiDARs and sensors. So how do you stay on top? How do you stay current with drone technology and what's the newest thing? What's going to bolster your business? How do you stay on top of that and current?
Well, I guess it's a double-edged sword. DJI doesn't let you forget that they got something new coming out. So, and then companies that I work with a lot, like Ohio Drone Repair, I'm always talking to the guys like they repair anything that I get or maintenance anything that I have. So I either send it to Ohio Drone Repair or I send it to DJI directly. But I try to keep all of my gear in good repair. So not just, if you crash or you do something, which I haven't done in a long time, but I keep them maintained. Yes. And don't plan on doing it anytime soon, but I keep them maintained. So when I send gear in, I get updates every so often. Like I say, I'll buy a newer piece of equipment probably every 2, maybe 3 years as technology improves.
Yeah.
And you look at the use cases. So it's just reading. You got to stay on top. It's always educating yourself. And that's why things like going through the USI curriculum and seeing what's out there from the standpoint of safety and operation, like you always have to be keeping yourself together. And then it comes back into play when I'm in the classroom and I'm teaching. The students will keep me on my toes too, because they'll ask me questions. Or my connection with ODOT. I work with Drive Ohio and Rich Granger. We're always talking shop, and Joby Aviation's in town and they're building air taxis over here. So it's just being in that. So that's what I'm in all the time. Drive Ohio, ODOT, some of these other companies. It's just I'm out there. I'm in the field. I'm learning. People are teaching me. It's a give take situation.
A lot of your equipment back there is DJI, hot name on the market. With regard to regulation and what's going on. What's your thoughts? What's your approach with DJI? And if you come up to a client that say like, hey, we'd love to have you, but we can't have DJI on site. What's your approach there?
So I do have a couple Skydio that I use, but I haven't had an issue with it. At the end of the day, the data is what matters, and being able to get them the footage that they're looking for. And most people could care less what platform it's on. But, as I look more at state and government-based projects, I know that that's coming down the corner, around the corner. I don't exactly know how I'm going to handle outside of. I may have to just utilize some of my other gear to satisfy that. It's just they're kind of the best in the game right now, in my opinion.
It's a common refrain that it's the gold standard, and it's tough to replace that. We hear that even with public safety folks. Like, I mean, I've heard sheriffs like literally go, until there's something as good, you're gonna have to pry this thing out of our hands because it works so well. But obviously there's some sensitivities around the systems and where they're developed, and trying to find that good balance is important. So yeah, it's going to be interesting in the next couple years on how how the dust settles here and how folks like you and other businesses approach this when you need quality, detailed data, and you need very, very high level professional tools to do that. So, and that's it does, and doesn't stop with drones. I mean, the sensors that they use on the ground, are super calibrated, super sensitive. I mean, that's high technology too. It's just ground based. So what about like cross functional training? So you're currently focusing on construction and using your sensor systems for that types of things. But what about other types of activities and operations are you exposed to? I mean, delivery is a hot one, or oil and gas pipeline inspections is another one that's really good, hot, and then agriculture as well. Do you have kind of this cross-functional breadth of training or experience as well, or are you just focused on construction?
So drone mapping is drone mapping. It's just which industry are you going to apply it to? So on the agricultural side of things, I'll use my multispectral drone to do that because it's more focused on plant health and conditions that way. Another nice thing or aspect of that is you can take that information and program the spray drones with the information that you find, and then that will only spray the areas that have a need. So it really revolutionizes the agricultural workspace because, the process has always been, you spray so much per acre, 20 gallons per acre, period. So it doesn't really matter. We do it everywhere. It's just what we do. But so much material waste, really, if it wasn't needed in that area. So this helps to be operationally efficient, helps you to improve crop yield. It helps you to be more efficient in that standpoint. And it saves farmers a lot of money if they embrace this particular aspect of technology. So but there's a whole space for that. And I've done some pieces in there, but I don't have a spray drone to do it. So I'll have where I'll go out and I'll collect the initial set of data, hand that off to a drone service provider that specializes in spraying. But that's another $60,000 wing to go into. So it's like everything at this level ends up being fairly expensive, even going up to oil and gas and the type of sensor that you need there. You're talking a $90,000 to $100,000 sensor.
But I mean,
to be able to operate in that area. So
totally. And I don't want to scare our audience though, because I think you're right. That's a pricey, but compared to the alternative, which is a helicopter and multiple days of a helicopter and a pilot, and they're still capturing the same data. So they need sensors as well. So it's actually probably cheaper than the alternative, although still, it's pricey to get that information and that useful data that they may need. A few more questions. We're running up against our time today, and it's been a great conversation. Number one, thank you. But what major trends do you see in the industry? Like, what are you beyond hardware? Because we kind of touched on that, but what do you see in the industry? Where are we going? What's going on? What's your crystal ball say?
I see a more widespread adoption, especially as in the survey space, particularly the time savings. On average, you save like 70% of the time. Something that takes a ground survey team probably a week to do, you could do in a day, maybe two, with the drone and process your data and get the information in there. So the time savings that the drones can provide to industry, period, I think is going to be more and more adopted. It's just getting people to understand and accept. Here in Columbus, man, we're building stuff everywhere. So there's a construction crew this way, there's a construction crew that way. So I see those, and there's all kinds of traditional surveyors that, are trying to be hired. But I think drones are going to be adopted more and more for these things. I think the delivery aspect of things may be problematic just from how to control the airspace. And I think the things that we've seen thus far in just regulating that are interesting. So I think there are still some kinks left to work out in that market, but I do see it as something that could be done in the future.
Yeah, two things on that. Like, number one, I had one company we were talking to, and they said there's over 140 use cases that company has come up with. Obviously, prioritized, differently. There's the off the wall use case that maybe in 20 years we'll do that. But it's just amazing that people came up with 140 different ideas.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And then the second thing is kind of, you were talking about seeing the return. And I have heard of a different company that they went and utilized drones, and there was some hesitancy in leadership because what you've talked about, it's expensive, it could be expensive. They came back from this mission and they showed the data. And not only did the leadership say, oh, this is awesome, but they said, do it tomorrow. Now they changed their tune. They changed their tune from hesitancy to like, yeah, we're investing and we're going to do this double time, because they saw that the value of that, those tools being used. So that was super interesting. I guess final thing for our audience, we have young and old. What are some resources that you would recommend some aspiring drone professionals to use, read, attend? Like, what do you think? What would you share with our audience? Say, hey, read this book, do this course, attend this conference.
I mean, like I said, the curriculum that USI offers, when you want to go beyond the 107, there's a bazillion different companies out there that will offer you a Part 107, and cool, that's your minimum. But be more than the minimum. Strive to be a professional. Look for someone like USI that can provide you the type of education so that you can be a professional, because that's what's coming down the corner. To be able to have conversations with corporations or any of these businesses in these different sectors, you need to know what you're talking about, and they need to be able to have confidence in you to be able to perform that. So for me, I would say identify a niche that you want to go into. If it's agriculture, own the agriculture space. If it's oil and gas, learn what is needed there. Each of these, although the processes are very similar, the needs are very different. So own a niche, get your basics, take your level to professionalism, and then really specialize in a particular area. That's why I say I go back to the construction space and the survey space, because that's what I'm trying to specialize in. That's what, the investment that I made in the gear that I have is to be able to provide quality data to construction sites, but all types of construction. So that's where the lane I'm in. Choose a lane.
I love that. It's be laser focused, and then you're going to be the person that they call, because you're the number one, it's like a Yelp review. If I look up, hey, I need construction drone surveying, ARO Aerial is going to come up in Ohio, and boom, right there, because you're focused on that, and you have the tools and the background and the education and the training and the complete package in order to give the highest quality data in the most efficient way possible. To save my money and my time as a construction GC, but still provide quality to my customers as well. So that's a great point, and I love that. So for our audience, focus is the call to action there. Be as focused as you can. That doesn't mean don't dip your toes in all the different avenues and find out what you love. But once you find out that thing that you love and that industry avenue that fits you the best, boom, go after it with laser focus. Thanks, Adrian. That's all the time we have. It's been awesome catching up with you and talking to you, and good luck. And I got to find my way out there because I want to fly some of those drones next time I'm in town.
Let's do it, man. I'll take you.
Thanks, Adrian. Great hearing from you and learning about precision surveying and the importance professional training plays in that. For those of you interested in growing your capabilities and skill sets, check out USI and our advanced training pathways. We'll be happy to help guide you to the next level. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you in part 2. Bye for now.